Yeah.
Yo.
And we are live. We are live. Yes, yes. I have my Pata statue and I have my Black woman statue and I have my little ankh and my candle. And I just want to say Duana Tur and call upon the Neteru, a Neterak Pata, Nuk Pata, a Neterak Sekmet, Nuk Sekmet, a Neterak Sishat, Nuk Sashat, Anetak Tehuti, Nuk Tehuti, to bring forth wisdom for all of us to communicate well and for people to understand and for us to be nice and creative and have a good time. Duana Tur. And from the original people who said this word, amen.
Amen.
Just feeling it a little bit. Come on in, everybody. Hotep, Marcus, Mansa, Munsa, Morgan. Come on in. Come on in. I see we have 18 people. Come on in. Tonight we have Queen Thandiwe from the Shrine of Ma'at. She is one of our initiates. Come on in. Come on in. My dog wants to run around. Come on. Come on. Come on. Hold on. I live with people. Go ahead. Come on in, everyone. Today, we have an amazing guest. She is one of our initiates from Rakha Seshen, from the initiate class of 2020. She is a healer. She is a business woman. She is a part of the Health and Wellness Committee. She is also the person who sends out the newsletters whenever we have our equinoxes and solstices, and we have our 5-day fast. She's the one who does that. Queen Thandiwe came in with the ground, hitting the ground running, and helping the wellness element of the Shrine of Ma'at. So, she became, Queen Thandiwe began her journey as a spiritual jegna, a holistic healer, and a life and transformational coach. Her mission is to help Black women break free from generational cycles of internalized oppression, emotional triggers, and deeply rooted negative beliefs and traumas so they can define, design, and demonstrate a life in alignment with their sacred calling. Now, I'm gonna read that again because when I asked for her bio, I was like, "Oh, this is me," and I know her. Okay, so what we're gonna do is what she has here in her bio and the mission that she has is what we're going to be discussing tonight. Okay. Her mission is to help Black women, that's Pan African Black women who are actually Black. Not that you grew up with Black people, not, you do this when you talk, none of that. But you are actually a Pan African Black woman. And that is because the journey that we have had, whether you are a continental African and stayed on the continent or you are a displaced Pan African like the two of us, our journey is not marketable. It's not transferable. It is not relational, meaning whether you have a relationship with someone who's Black, you have half Black children, or you grew up, whatever. It is not your experience, and it is not what you internalize, and it is not how you are treated. This is not for you. Okay. And don't put the heat on Thandiwe because I'm the one saying it. If the message is something that's offensive to you, I just want to make that clear because people try to come into our spaces and it's really disrespecting the trauma that we need, the space that we need to address our trauma. So let me go back and read this again. Her mission is to help Black women free from generational cycles of internalized oppression, emotional triggers, and deeply rooted negative beliefs and traumas so they can define, meaning create your own, design, and demonstrate a life in alignment with their sacred calling. This is such a beautiful mission, and I've personally seen her do a lot of that already in the shrine. She also has an upcoming rites of passage program called Sisters Rising. All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just wanted to let you know who we have in the building. We have Queen Thandiwe. Welcome, my dear sister. Welcome.
Anking my eye, or as I like to say in my community, elevates the energy immediately. We like to use that vibration elevating sound, right? What I like to consider one of the elements in addition to earth, air, fire, water, light and sound and ether. We want to bring all that vibration up. So yeah, thank you for that warm introduction. And I am very excited to be here and to be discussing the topics we will be discussing today.
Oh, cool. Good. I am too. So, one of the goals of this is to shift the mindset of like always we're always suffering.
Yeah.
Okay. We're living in a time where there is an actual visual, energetic, spiritual shift away from ignorance into knowledge and away from suffering into healing. A lot of people are talking about healing,
Mhm.
not just in the Pan-African Black community, but a lot of people are talking about healing. And I think that it's become even more magnified with the pandemic that we have, how important health really is. It's a good thing that we are focusing on internal healing. So, Queen Thandiwe, my first question to you is, what got you started on this healing journey and interested enough in it to learn about it, live it, and to bring forth this information to others and to Black women in particular?
Yeah. Well over, I'm trying to keep this somewhat brief. Well over 15 years ago, I had, what a lot of people like to refer to the dark night of the soul, the point where you break down. I had a lot of personal struggles with my own traumas. And it was producing, when you repress trauma, you repress, memories and all of those things, they show up in your body. They show up in your psychology. You don't always know how to explain them. And so for me, it was panic attacks. It was anxiety. It was depression. And I was working, just working, and pursuing things. At the time, I was pursuing acting in New York. I was working crazy hours at restaurants and doing all kinds of stuff. And I just kept having breakdowns. And one night, I hit my knees, but not in like a Christian way, just like really, like I could not, like my body just felt weak from just all of the emotion. And while I do I don't really have an issue with like psychiatric approaches to things. For me, it was like that's not oh, we lost the shot. Well, I'm gonna keep
No, I'm here. I just got
okay,
you
all right,
solo.
good. Okay. So, but for me, I was really adamant and very clear that I didn't want to seek medication. I wanted to understand what it was that I was experiencing. And I remember falling to my knees, and I didn't really have a religiosity about me yet. It was just something bigger has to be at play here. And I need to figure this out for myself. I remember it was tears. And my now husband of almost 20 years was like, "You all right?" And I was like, "We might need to break up because I need to figure this out for myself." And he was like, "No, it's cool. Figure it out." And that's when I just kind of went on this search, reading. And I remember searching in search engines for just interesting questions. Where is heaven? And just asking questions based off of the little tidbits of information I had gotten from the Baptist church I had grown up in and things like that, but knowing that that wasn't absolutely it. And I found myself in an interfaith seminary because I was just looking for a place where I could explore all these things that I was feeling and thinking and wondering about. I remember joining a message board for people that had near-death experiences. Like it was just, I was talking to any and everybody that was willing to step outside of the box that we're often put in when we are exploring ourselves. And so I did that. That was 2 years, and that bug kind of bit me. While I was doing it, that the head of the program that I was into something called transpersonal psychology, which in essence is spiritual psychology. So when she started to describe that, I was like, wait, we can combine spirituality and psychology. And I'm one of those scholarship people. I'm currently getting a PhD in transformative studies, really looking at internalized oppression, because that's just how I'm oriented to information and understanding and spirituality. And so I went in and got my master's degree. And while I was there, I kept going, well, what do the Black people have to say about this? Where is the Black voices? Where are the Black women's voices? Where are the Black men's voices? You're talking to me about meditation, but you're saying it like we can only get that from Asia, or we can only get it from some European person that studied with an indigenous American person or something like I was just like, where's our voices? And it just got more and more frustrating. And it was a lot of what is called spiritual bypass taking place. Everybody was praying and meditating and hugging trees, and nobody was talking about what was really going on the planet. All these police murders that are taking place, and just all these traumas that are befalling my people. And I'm in this community where everything is being ignored. So I was shaking stuff up a lot in the retreats and things of that sort. And I was like, you know what? My husband actually introduced me to a video of Dr. Joy DeGruy speaking about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And that was the first time I said, it's a name. It's a name for it. Okay. I'm not bugging. Like, I know that even with education and consciousness and study and all this stuff that I'm doing, I'm still finding myself, catching myself. And that's such a huge part of what we're talking about today is awareness. There's so much social negativity built around acknowledging that as a Black person, I need healing from something that I've either been conditioned to over generations or that I've downloaded over time from society. And so there's this big block to being able to address it directly. And so a big part of my mission is saying, no, we've internalized stuff. It is what it is. Let's call it out, call a thing, and really address it for what it is so that we're not passing it on through generations. What we tend to do is bury it, pull it out in other people, talk bad about them with their colorism, talk bad about them with their featureism and their self-hatred. And we put all these tag words on it, which gives it such a negative connotation, where for me, it's no different than saying, I got anxiety, I need to heal this. I got depression, I need to heal this. Right. I've internalized something from the traumas that have befallen my people over generations. I need to directly heal it for what it is. And in these universal programs, which is what you were talking about, if we go into these universal programs saying, yeah, we do healing, or we help you, or you go into these, and I have nothing against therapy in and of itself, but we're not approaching it through an Afrocentric lens, then we're coming from a European perspective on how to heal something. And oftentimes, even Black therapists that don't concentrate on an Afrocentric perspective can end up causing more harm than helping, because they're coming through a lens that has nothing to do with us and is actually developed, stolen from us, and then reworked to benefit a Western perspective on healing. And I just strongly believe that it's not what we need. And the more I study and look into an Afrocentric perspective on psychology, spirituality, holistic healing, and all of that, the more I'm convinced that we really need to construct our own pathways. So that's my short answer to what brings. But I've been at this for over 15 years, just pulling and extrapolating things out that I use on myself and now with clients, and it's really, really helps. And a big thing for me that I've noticed is that out in social media and everything, there's this association with healing and like suffering, that I'm not really healing if I'm not suffering through the process. And you'll see these memes where people are like snotting and crying. Not that there's anything wrong with tears, but there's a process where you can elevate, understand, and become aware of and heal your body and fast and do this holistically, so that when you do find that, and what happens is sometimes a memory will say, hey, address me. It will come up in your psychology and say, hey, you do need to look at me, but not so we step into that age that we were when XYZ thing happened. But when we come in having self-dominion, right? Being fortified spiritually, being fortified physically, understanding how our emotions work, understanding how our nervous system works, understanding how our spirituality works, allowing the divinity that we are to take the lead in the healing process. Well, now we're not suffering. Because we have, and pain is one thing, right? Pain is that mechanism in our psychology and in our physical bodies to protect us, right? That's one thing. But when you are talking about suffering, that's a choice. And unfortunately, in the larger society around the healing conversation, there's a lot of talk around, oh, you got to break all the way apart, melt all the way down to the ground, and all of those different things. You have to endure a lot of pain. And I think it's a deterrent to a lot of people to really going in and stepping forward with both feet into the healing process, because they're afraid that when they open that box, that they're not going to be able to pull themselves back together again. And so a part of my mission is to say you absolutely can. And you can actually do it in joy and in bliss and in light and in love and in gratitude and all these wonderful, beautiful, high frequency vibrations. If
Mm-hmm.
you approach it having dominion over it, not waiting for someone else to tell you what it's supposed to look like. You get to
Mm-hmm.
decide that for yourself.
You know, I'm going to go back to one of the first points you made in this when you talked about Black voices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a certified yoga teacher. I was originally, my father passed away in 2016, and I um, did my first yoga teacher training in 2016. Part of it was great. Well, let me rephrase. All of it was great. I was able to heal more because of some of the modalities that we had in the teacher training class. But what we didn't talk about was enslavement. What we didn't talk about were the effects of it. What we didn't talk about were a lot of things that are day by day elements of our lives, whether it's something that is literally happening that day, like tangibly happening, or it's an experience that you've had. Like, for example, I've been, going to the post office, mailing some things, right? And there's this one woman in there. She's so rude. It'd be one thing if she was rude to everybody, but she's just rude to me. Other people go in there. Hi, Marianne. How are you? Oh, hi. How are you? I walk in. Can I help you? I'll be right there. What can I help you with? I'm like, I have to mail stuff. It was a post office. What you mean? What can you help me? You can help me mail these packages. Like, I didn't say that, but we have to deal with, and so then when that happens, it's like, well, is she just rude to everybody or is she just rude to me? I really didn't know because I had never seen this woman do anything nice at all. But then when these other women walked in, hey, Mary, I was like, oh, so she's just rude to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have those experiences here and there all day or every other day or whatever, I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Black person who doesn't have those experiences at least 5 times a week in some minor way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so to not have a Black voice, or to not be able to really truly get into the nitty gritty of how we, and not even the whole deep down nitty gritty of it, but just like everyday, like I got a text message from someone who wants to raise money to help people go vote. And I'm not saying don't vote. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I was saying. Vote. Do what you were doing before I made this comment. But what was on my mind was reparations. Don't ask me to do nothing. We talking reparations. So then you have these allies,
yeah,
who, as long as we talk about whatever's in the safe ball, then I can help you do this.
right.
But I'm not going to help you do the real thing. Black voices get ignored systematically and systemically. Systematic is different than systemic.
Mm-hmm.
Systemic means it's set up for your voice to either be ignored or vilified or demonized. And systematic means regularly. So, it is crucial to have a space for Black voices, to fill that space with voices from Black people, and to make sure that we are able to have a voice in all aspects of what it is that we do. When my father transitioned, I was already in therapy because my aunt had transitioned prior to that, and I made sure I had Black therapists. Queen Thandiwe is a gem. If I could find a comedic counselor to guide me through my trauma, that is something that is definitely rare. My point in all of this is we all have a voice. Creating your space and making sure that your voice is used is a part of healing. So then when I took my comedic yoga teacher training in 2018, it was night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody up in there was Pan-African Black. Yasir was teaching it, and we just had a good old time. And when you have 200-hour level yoga teacher training, it's basically the same. The difference is the style of yoga is focused, so that's, different or whatever. But having a voice, having a space, having a teacher, having other people who have internalized and externalized the same experience that you have is incredibly powerful. So it was mentioned, but we have to, like, let's marinate in our Black voices to know that that's a part of what we need to begin to heal and to take ourselves out of the suffering.
Also, to your point, having Black voices helps us to understand the origin of things. Because
That's
a lot
right.
of times, especially when I went into, say, the interfaith seminary, I'm feeling like I'm on the outside looking into someone else's tradition, whether I was studying, and when you're spiritual interfaith, you're looking at Buddhism and Hinduism and all these other traditions, which, I enjoyed the traditions, but it felt other. It wasn't until I started to learn, oh, wait a minute, a lot of what comes into Hinduism and yoga comes out of Kemet and Buddhism. When you start to connect those dots, and when you go to these quote unquote universal programs, they're not going to connect those dots for you. I remember learning meditation years ago from a white woman, and she wanted to talk to me separate because she heard my story, and me and her met separately from her majority, Tamhu class. And she said, well, truth be told, all of these traditions that I'm teaching to y'all walk right out of Kemet and into India. And I said, interesting. Do you ever teach your class that? She said, they would never receive it. So this is what I'm saying. When we don't have our voices in there, right?
Right.
Even in, like you said, those ally type situations, which I'm sure she identifies herself as such, she's still adhering to the capitalistic perspective of, I'm not going to feed nobody nothing they're not going to receive. I expect those people that I know to have a bias against or a problem with actually speaking of the true Black African origins of a lot of the traditions that we're finding ourselves in. And I see it all the time, especially on social media, where people feel, even when we talk about shadow work, when we talk about inner child, right? Inner child, this perspective is an archetype. The archetype is said to come from Carl Jung, but no, when you go into mythology, then you understand that across the world, there were always ideas of the child God, so to speak. It grows up and it becomes integrated as this powerful being that helps, right? This representation of principles around our own ability to become self-realized and to become powerful and to understand our own divinity. This has been since the beginning of storytelling, and yet it's tagged to a specific European psychologist that's really famous for what he's doing. So so a part of us being in the position where our voices are represented. And I'm so happy in my PhD program, my chair and my committee, all these beautiful Black women that's been in the mix with helping to heal Black women for 30 plus years. They're amazing, but I had to find them. I could not find them within the institution that I'm in. I had to go outside and get special. And fortunately they allowed me to do that in order to have those scholars who are Kemetic, who do similar practices and follow a similar path and philosophy that I do. So it's really, really important to go that extra mile, if need be, in every aspect of healing, in physical, holistic healing, in dietary healing, in psychology, in our emotions, every aspect of what you're doing, yoga, in fitness, all those spaces. When we dig enough into the origin of things, we will find ourselves. And this culture knows how empowering it is to know that. And so it's important and incumbent upon us to go and make sure we do that for ourselves.
That's right. That's right. It's very important for us to go do it for ourselves. There are times when I would mention certain elements of that, yoga originated in Kemet or originated in Africa. They weren't trying to hear that. I was the only Black person in the teacher training for a certain module. And then another Black girl came in, and she was a beautiful dark-skinned sister. And she wore a weave the whole time. I've never seen I think there's one picture of her with her natural hair. And I want to see her natural hair so much. And I thought, can I ask her? Like, we're not close enough for me to ask her that. She's so beautiful, but she would be even more beautiful with her natural hair. But I digress. That's a whole nother topic, y'all. But anyway, my point is, a lot of times I'm the one creating the Black space, and it's like Wu-Tang kicking in the door with some with some boots on, with some Timbs on. That's kind of my style sometimes, because sometimes it requires that. So yes, I just want to say, yes, seeking it out and learning it for yourself is what we need to do, and using our own Black voices. Remember, y'all, I told y'all this year we learning stuff, so that's your first note. Our
Yep.
our Black voices speak for ourselves. Learn and find the original source. Okay. I also wanted
Always.
to, yes, always. I also wanted to mention, or when you said you internalize these traumas in the body, one of the things that Bikram yoga teachers would say, at least at Bikram Yoga Harlem when it existed, your issues are in your tissues. The issues are in your tissues,
Yeah.
which means when you are going through something, it is inside your body. And there would be some times when, I walk into class, because at one point, Bikram was the only yoga that I did. And you do certain postures, you start crying. And I'm like, what in the hell? Where did that
Mhm.
come from? Like, I didn't even know that I had to cry. And so it's because when you move your body in certain ways, when you have the heat and the sweat, and one of the other elements in Bikram yoga, the old school OG Bikram yoga, is you cannot fidget in between postures. Why is that? Because you have to sit still in your discomfort. Sitting still in your discomfort enhances what's uncomfortable, and it gets those issues out of your tissues, which is why it's
Mhm.
important to meditate, which is why it's important to go into it with a healing frame of mind, where you're gonna have to sit still, like grandma used to say back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you absolutely do internalize your traumas. When my father died, I had hives, I
Mhm.
had a rash. I lost 10 pounds. I, like, I wasn't trying not to eat. I wasn't trying to get no rash, and my blood pressure went through the roof. Like, all this in 1 week, it was nuts. I'm like, I thought my body was going to explode, like head, everything, just boom. And it was because clearly that's an kind of a intense example because of losing a parent, but that is not just like some phrase. So that's something that we also have to be aware of. When Queen Thandiwe started talking, she said she had suppressed things, and she
Mhm.
was always moving and always, working hours, and she's acting, she's doing this, that, and the third. All that moving prevents someone from addressing the issues in the tissues, and prevents you from sitting still and having to face what is internal.
Mhm.
Okay. So I just wanted to bring that out because I know y'all taking notes, right? Um,
Mhm.
for kind of recognizing some of these things for yourself. Okay. Now, we're talking about some of the harder part, but remember, Queen Thandiwe has a program, and there are other services that she provides she's going to talk about. So we're not just going to leave you out there feeling, kind of raw and open.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, so I know we were talking about generational traumas,
Mm-hmm.
and you were talking about the issues being in the tissues,
Mm-hmm.
and just having an understanding of, people like to use the phrase generational curses,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like that too much, because curses have this. It implies that it is a part of you you can't get rid of, and
Right.
almost something that was done to you. And as we know, our personal histories, our people a lot of the times did the best that they could, given the circumstances. And when you talk about issues being in the tissues, literally, when a person goes through a trauma, we release certain chemicals into our bodies, and
Mm-hmm.
it changes the cells within our bodies. It is possible that then those altered cells get passed on to future generations. Now, you couple that, right, which would orient you to, say, having certain responses to anxieties, maybe being a little bit more sensitive to stimuli than, say, maybe you would have been had your parents not gone through something. But then you couple that with the socialization, and in our case, we're socialized in basically a hostile environment most of the time, like when you mentioned the post office. So we have those post office type situations, like you said, what they term microaggressions, in academia and all those places. But you have these experiences, and you couple that with these sensitivities. And then we have parents who's seeking. That's where the post-traumatic slave syndrome comes in, where we're actually seeking to protect our children from laughing too loud, being too joyful, being silly little kids out on the street, because that could come with too much attention. And half the times these things are happening on the subconscious level. And so this is what I'm speaking about here, is where generational traumas, not curses, but generational traumas, or what I actually like to call patterns, inner child stuff, because usually those patterns are passed to us within our childhood, and then the shadow. And the shadow is the part that was repressed, the disowned parts of ourselves. These things are intertwined and they work kind of together, and they all block us from experiencing ourselves in wholeness.
Experiencing ourselves in wholeness, you guys. Did y'all hear that? I'm putting something in the chat. It's a little cheat sheet of what Queen Thandiwe just said. Okay. So I just, shadow works. I'm not a good typist. Sorry.
No worries. I'm seeing here, it says we're taught our lives, our issues aren't important, especially when we're taught to revere a Euro God who answers nothing. We provide answers, Ashe. And that's really, really important. A big part of the work that I do is learning to exercise self-dominion over our own choices and what even our healing looks like. You know, you ask somebody, they'll say, I want to be out of pain, but it's like, all right, well, what does the healed you look like? What does that feel like? What is that experience? What is your vision for your own healing? What is your vision for your elevation? And once the healing happens, well, then what?
You know,
most people have an answer for that.
You said, what'd you say?
I said most people don't have an answer for that. You get a lot of I don't knows. I never thought about that before, because it's being so mired again in that word suffering, being so mired in the intensity of the pain. What I also like to bring up a lot is pain is loud. When we are in pain and we are in suffering, is loud. So when you finally get to the point where you're starting to heal or peace becomes more normalized in your life, people aren't always sure how to orient to it when they've been in suffering for such a long time. And when we talk macrocosm, we're talking about our entire community. Suffering has become a part of our culture.
Yeah.
You know, the same way when we talk, I was thinking earlier today about how sometimes being happy has been pushed into the shadows. At least if you grew up where I grew up, West Philadelphia, born and raised, you can't be walking around all jipper and happy with a smile on your face. It is a problem. You can't do that. And so now what do I do if I'm 7 or 8 years old? Because it starts early. Right. And I don't have a place to put all that joy and silliness. Because in order to survive, right, we're communal people. You want to survive in the community that you're in, or you don't eat, in essence. You're everything about your instincts knows that it's hard to survive if you don't fit in with the culture that you're a part of. And so you push down all that joy, you push down that happiness of the 7-year-old, of the 8-year-old, of the 9-year-old, and then that ends up in the shadow. It's so many people when I'll talk and they'll say, you know, I know it'll help me to be vulnerable, or I know it'll help me to be quote unquote soft, but I see it as weakness. And I'm having a really hard time getting it out of my intellect, or even again, out of our tissues, out of the cells in our body, this idea that I don't always have to be on alert. I don't always have to be on a defense. I don't always have to be ready. I don't always have to be strong. These are all things that get put particularly on Black folk, even within our own community, meaning well as a protective thing that we learn really early. And in so doing, we lose freedom. We use freedom to be whole people. Are you still there?
I'm there. I when you on the mic, I just step back and give you.
Oh, is that what's happening? I'm like, where's she going?
I'm here. There's a feature, and sometimes I'm listening, and I'm like, oh, put her on solo, because
okay.
We have the full screen. So I do want to address, what does being healed look like? So from a European perspective, everybody is supposed to be this princess that lives happily ever after and nothing ever goes wrong. And that's just nonsense, period. Okay. So when we are aware that those kinds of ideals are embedded in our psyche, then you can kick it out. It's really easy. It's that simple. It's as simple as me saying it to you right now, and you meant like working with that information and then getting rid of it. And, you know, I would say that two traumas that happened to me was how I was able to know what it feels like to be healed. So I'm going to share something that might be a bit of a trigger warning and involve in discussing sexual abuse. Okay, sexual trauma. In 2006, I was molested by a stranger on a wave runner, and I had never happened to me before, and just the internal feeling that I had afterwards, because I thought he was going to kill me and throw me in the water. I thought he was going to rape me, kill me, throw me in the Atlantic Ocean. We were on a wave runner so far out, I couldn't see anything. The hotels looked this big. And I'm like, oh my God, I literally couldn't move. So knowing what it feels like to think someone's going to kill you is something that gets internalized. Mm-hmm. I moved to New York City a few years later. I was staying with a friend of mine. He's my platonic friend, like my brother, my homie. And I would have nightmares, and he had to, for the first time in my life, and he had to wake me up. So because I'm screaming. And so those things manifested themselves in internally. Over time, I did my work, and I actually started smoking marijuana then because I needed to sleep, because I was I was like just fidgety for a couple of years. So then over time, I dealt with it and I worked with it. And this is what I said to myself. I said, I'm not ever going to be the same as I was before, period. But then I said, we are always changing into something different. It's just so microcosmic that we don't notice the change. But when something traumatic happens, whether it's bad like that, or something beautiful like giving birth, you're like catapulted out of a cannon and you land like this. So you recognize you're able to see the difference. Once I let go, of the fact that this happened to me, I'm different. I've changed rather. Um, but I can still land on my feet and still be me and be healthy and happy. Then something let go. I don't know what that was. It just, something was released. And then I stopped.
Acceptance.
I'm sorry?
Acceptance.
Yeah, I accepted it.
Yeah.
And then I stopped thinking about it. I just didn't think about it anymore. I thought about it every night for years when I was laying in the bed alone at night in the dark in my room. But I stopped thinking about it. And it just, and then one day I realized, I was like, you are the same. You are normal again. And I felt normal. And that's the point of my anecdote here. I felt normal and I felt peace. And I didn't. And then occasionally if something came up, or, women, we talk about some things, it just becomes a story that I use to help other people at this point. It's not internalized anymore, because I accepted it and I let it go and I did my work with that. And so when I lost my cousin in 2013, my aunt in 2014, and my father in 2016, it's a lot of trauma, it's a lot of loss, it's a lot of mourning. And it took, there's a lot of work. There was a lot of meditation and yoga, a whole lot of tears, okay? A lot of cupcakes and Doritos, 20 extra pounds. All right. And over time, I accepted that. I accepted it. Being a Chemite made it easier to accept it, because we know that this is the part of the life cycle. I have an altar, a very mini ancestral altar to my aunt and my father, my aunt, over my shoulder. I got Ptah and a statue of an African woman and an ankh and a candle over here. So y'all can't see it. I wish you could. And because I understand the life cycle from an African paradigm, which is your structure, think of a paradigm as like a house. Okay. So I'm coming from an African paradigm, and also coming from an African perspective. Your perspective is your angle. All right. Because I was able to look at it from that perspective, my father is an ancestor. My father is in spirit. I have access to him through the ancestral altar. Mm-hmm. Losing a parent is the natural order in the life cycle. It hurts, It's hard. Sometimes I still boo-hoo cry, and that's normal. But accepting it is the hardest part. But on the other side of that, as you work through it, you start to heal. You start to heal. There's someone in the chat who lost his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and he had mentioned it before. And I'm really giving you this part for you. This is for you. It's for everyone. But since you opened up here in the thread, this part is for you. Losing a parent is hard, but if you accept it and let all those emotions out, let them out, eventually that level of intensity of pain will subside. Okay. And then you become a different type of person. You're vulnerable, but incredibly strong. I feel both vulnerable
And both
and
ends.
indestructible at the same time. Vulnerable and indestructible at the same time, which is,
Because it is the strength that makes you be able to be vulnerable.
that's
Vulnerability
right.
takes a tremendous amount of courage, and it
Yes.
is almost impossible to be vulnerable without that level of strength that you're describing.
Okay. Okay. So, I just wanted to share that part because that is my experience with it. And it is something that you can manage, not manage, but just be yourself again in a different way and in a different way.
Well, and the thing too, when I'm an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I talk to anybody on my platform in my Facebook group, Melanated Divinity, knows that I talk about it very openly. And I remember having that question, who would I have been had these things not happened? Because I was really super young. I was like 3 years old.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here and I'm receiving what you're saying, and just in general, we're never the same anyway.
That's right.
Like you said, that perspective of coming from an Afrocentric perspective, and we understand the cycles of life. We're never the same anyway, no matter what it is that we're experiencing. So
Yep.
we're coming through something. That something might be a trauma or just a life experience or whatever that is. Relationships that we're in alter who we are. There's an evolution that is the purpose of why we come into this physical manifestation, is to take that journey of life, that elevating journey, that evolutionary journey of who we've been and who we ultimately become. And the power position of being in, like you talked about, with acceptance and deciding with intention, in opposed to kind of allowing life to tug and pull us where it's going to go because of something that's at play subconsciously, or we set that intention, similar to what you said, Boots the Shot, where you are owning the journey. That's the difference. It's really owning the journey and not allowing the journey to kind of pull you along and knock you left and right, but actually saying, this is what it's going to look like. Like you said, developing. I have not lost a parent. Just found out yesterday that I lost lifelong childhood friend, cousin, passed away. She's just transitioned. May she rest and sleep in power. And she was paralyzed for over 20 years. And I often had dreams of her running. And I talked with her best friend yesterday, and we said, our girl's flying now. Again, doesn't mean that I'm, and I remember going internal, with all my spiritual practice, going, why you ain't tell me? It just inside, I could feel it. Why you ain't tell me you were struggling? I didn't know, but it's that transition in relationship now, that my relationship is not with her in the physical world, but my relationship continues with her in a new way, in a like you said, in a spiritual way, whether I'm lighting a candle or I'm speaking to her in a physical space that I can go to. I love the use of nature in the process of healing.
Yes.
People
Yes.
really don't utilize nature. Like, we all have our elements. What's your favorite element? Like, if it's fire, get in that sun. If it's water, get in a moving live body of water. If it's earth, put your hands in the ground, do some gardening, put your feet on the earth, do some earthing. Or air, just in that open air, breathe in that open air, stand up on something high up. If you could climb a mountain, breathe in that real nice, fresh, clean air. But whatever that is, it helps. It's similar to what you were talking about, to turn down the dial on the intensity, so that you're able to kind of interact with your experience again, more intentionally and with awareness. What am I feeling?
Right.
the
Right.
experience I want to be having. Because our minds can kind of run off, right? We'll have a thought, and that thought leads to all this thinking, and then our nervous system starts responding. And our emotions are such a powerful thing. That emotion is that frequency, is that energy in motion. And so if we can stay in, at least in that midway point, that we can exercise some level of dominion, whether we are dealing in what we're talking about, which is grief, or any number of other things. Like when you talked about internalizing kind of our local experiences or our personal traumas, but we as a collective have internalized over generations and
That's
centuries
right.
traumas from our foremothers and our forefathers, that we still don't fully understand, because we will not shine a strobe light on it. Like for me, it's not enough direct, active attention paid to, no, we're gonna sit in this, and whether I think I have this issue or not, for the collective, I'm gonna look at it. Because it's subconscious. And that's the thing with inner child work, generational patterns. Sometimes we'll see patterns in other people. We don't necessarily see it within ourselves, because there's resistance and defensiveness there.
Yep.
Same thing with inner child. One of the questions, that I ask clients when they are struggling with something, they feel stuck, or they're constantly feeling a level of anxiety, or they feel unsafe in the world. I'll say, well, how old does that part of you think you are? And it's often, oh wait, nope, six, okay, 6. All right. So does not mean, I'm a very strong believer in, we do not have to relive the past. The past has information for us. So even when we're doing inner child work, one of the most powerful things I ever experienced, and it's so interesting because I had studied it, but I had not experienced it myself. Yana Van Zandt, I went to one of her rites of passage programs, and I was having a very emotional moment around my experience, or the experience I had had at 3 years old. And this is where I was like, wow, we don't have to suffer, and we don't have to relive the past. Because what I was suffering, because I was making the choice to hyper focus on that age of me in pain and trauma. She kept saying, not you, her. What she was doing was creating space.
Right.
And this is what we need to do with grief. This is what we need to do with trauma, whether it's trauma that we're experiencing or the trauma that we have as a collective experience, is create space between who we believe we are. What's happened a lot, I believe, in our culture is we've gotten hyper identified with the trauma, right? It's not the trauma, it's our trauma, right? It's not the thing that's happened, it's the thing that happened to me. But that was many moons ago, and that was decades ago in my case. And so she said, well, speak for her, tell her story. And I was so like, tears dry right up. I was like, okay, I'll ask her. And what does she want? And what does she love? Or what does she enjoy? And it was like, she wants to dance. Oh my goodness. How long have I been repressing this desire to move in this way? How long have I been repressing this? Like, I'm very silly now because I tapped into that aspect. A lot of times when we've experienced something, we almost kind of get stuck in that experience, not realizing there's a whole other part of our lives that we experienced that was light, or that we wanted to experience, and at the time we couldn't, but we can do for ourselves now. That's what I was able to do in that moment. And then I took that home and ran with it. And a major part of my rite of passage program really looking at womb story. A lot of people don't know what's happening with your mama when you was in the womb. That's important to understand the energies that are floating around you that you may not understand. Right? Ages 0 to 7, ages 7 to 14, ages 14 to 21. These are really important times to just kind of give ourselves a voice. A lot of times, especially in this culture, it's repressed.
Yeah.
It's lost. It's gone. And you can't be silly. You can't act a certain way. You can't be like what I was talking about before, particularly in our culture and our communities. You can't be light and jovial. You can't be friendly. You can't be, depending on what community that you were in, it's pushed down, it's pushed down, it's pushed down. Now we're not able to be a whole person. Well, actually, now I can, because now I can exercise dominion. I remember one client, she was talking to me about a period in her life, in her young adult life. And I said, well, what does she need? And she said, she needs shoes. I said, well, go get me some shoes. And just having that experience, and you can now give yourself, it's not all is not lost. If it's something that you didn't get when you were 5 or when you were 9 or when you were 12, a major part of that inner child work is to say, well, what did I need then? And how can I fill that in for myself now? Because what that does is help you to feel whole and free yourself of any of the anxieties that come with past experiences. And when you do those things in a way, again, that's holistic, you bring the food in, you bring the nature in, you bring the movement in. You talked about Bikram Yoga. I had a similar experience with Kundalini Yoga. It was Kundalini is real simple as a practice. I had not heard of Kemetic Yoga yet. And it was just a movement kind of like this. We were just doing this, but for a really long time, like shoulders on fire. And something punched through my chest and tears. And what people don't always get about tears is just energy. The energy needs to move. And the tears are letting you know, breakthrough, right? You didn't necessarily feel bad when you started to cry. It's just that energy was released. So in that process for me with the Kundalini, it was the same thing, that I was able to have that kind of burst forth of energy that needed to move. But like I was talking about before, when it comes to inner child work, it's really, really important to give yourself those things, to speak that life into yourself. And there's so many ways that you can do it. We were talking about actually actionable steps. A lot of people like to do it via journaling. Some people do it via visualization. Some people aren't big journalers, and so there's other ways of visualization. If your element, for instance, and you want to be creative, you want to again take dominion over your spiritual practice. If you love the earth, then go. I used to love to lay on the trees and speak to them and breathe with them and leave all of that energy there with the trees. So that's another process. Where you go? Still there?
I'm here.
Oh, it's weird. I need things to stay.
All right. I'll
like they are. I'm like, wait, what was I saying? But you
Sorry.
get what I'm saying, though, as far as the inner child work, there's so many ways that it can be approached, but we don't want to bury them because we're now in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and think that those aspects of ourselves do not need a voice. Oftentimes, they did not and were not able to speak their pain or their life or their love or their joy. And so there's always this opportunity now in the present moment, which is the only time there is.
That's right.
To allow that to take place, to speak life into yourself. The thing about memories, right? People go, I just keep having this memory and over. Memories are transient. You can change memories. You can shift personal memories. You can shift them. You can move them. You can insert yourself into them as an adult. You can do all kinds of things. And so again, microcosm to macrocosm. Well, how do we visualize, meditate, pray, manifest for the collective? Right? If I say to myself, well, what's true and what would I like to be true for my own life? Well, why am I not also asking that question for the community? Mm-hmm. What would I like to be true for the community? And again, I'm very big on, I say to people all the time, you want to lay your mind, your heart, and your body at the altar of your own divinity. You want your spirit, your soul to lead, and if that's the case, and if I'm asking that of my highest self, as it's often put, then I'm asking the same question. Well, what would need to happen for our community to heal? And not from an intellectual, hyper intellectual space. There's time for that. But from this, again, this holistic space, and just let the question linger and let the question sit. If I hear another thing about the law of attraction and everybody is just manifesting stuff for themselves and no one is actually saying, well, wait a minute, because we just as involved in those types of things as everybody else. And yet if we understand how this energy moves, which is certainly a major part of Cometicism, well, then how do we use that as a collective to help to manifest? What is our vision really? What are we manifesting into? How are we healing our history as a collective?
I think that we're in the pot that's stirring and bubbling and boiling and is hot right now. It's hot. Mm-hmm. There is an attorney from Hartford who he's a legend in Hartford, and he said the way the racial, and I paraphrase, the racial situation that's going on now is worse than he's ever seen. And he's an elder. He's a very well respected elder.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're in the thick of it, we're just feeling the heat. And since we don't control the media, we're going to see the absolute worst element of Pan-African Black people.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take a micro perspective of it, change is never easy. Waking up is never easy. And doing the hard work, the difficult work, the inner child work, looking yourself in the mirror, picking apart what needs to improve within you, that's all the ugly work. That's the hard stuff. And I think we're doing it. I think we're in it.
But it doesn't have to be ugly.
You're right. Let me rephrase.
It don't have, I hear what she's saying. And
Wait,
if the ugly show up,
let me just say this one thing.
Yeah.
The racial tension. I mean, that part is ugly.
That part, yes, absolutely.
That part. The response to what we're doing is ugly. That's what I meant. Not
okay.
I'm glad you stopped me on that. I gotta stop. I gotta be more clear. Sometimes I'm all in my head and I'm talking faster than I can.
No worries. That's why we're here.
My bad. The work that we're doing, which is the point of what this is all about, it doesn't have to be suffering. It doesn't have to be ugly. None of the process that I went through when I landed back on my feet to be normal was ugly. I was vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference. There is a peace and in being vulnerable. When my aunt was dying, I had to admit it to myself. And I asked one of the nurses straight to her face, is my aunt going to die? And she affirmed it. She did not say yes. I don't remember what she said. I fell to my knees because I just lost control of my body. And at a certain point, I was at peace. It was traumatizing and I was in pain and I was hurt, but I was also at peace. And I think we need to recognize the fact that peace is not this fairy tale where this white man on a horse comes, gets this white woman who had fallen, and he picks her up and they ride off and everything is great. That's not even real ever. In Earth history, that's never happened, period. Peace is accepting things for what they are and finding a way to move past that, to move on in your life in power. That's peace. You know what I'm saying? When you're able to just move on from that. Like people are like,
it's the through line. It's the through line. So it's like peace is that. So if we could draw a straight line, right? This is peace, right? In the middle, mm-hmm. Then there's joy. I can be sad. Meanwhile, peace is always here, right? I can be excited and ecstatic. I can get pissed off, but I'm good all the way through the process. The ebb and the flow, the ups and the downs of emotions is a part of being a human being. It's okay to be angry. And this is what we're talking about with shadow. People act like it's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to feel jealous. It's not okay to feel all the different, plethora of feelings that we can have. But the piece is to say throughout it all, I am okay. Throughout it all, I'm content. Throughout it all, I'm fine. I'm okay. But that up and down, and then that acceptance that there's going to be an up and down, because that's a part of life. Right. That's a part of the lesson. That's a part of the evolution. That's a part of the elevation. Is to feel it's okay. I lost someone. I'm sad. And what revolution ever happened when someone didn't get pissed off?
That's right.
Didn't get angry.
That's right.
That's the gold in the shadow. Because a lot of people talk about the shadow and these parts of ourselves that we don't like. And I love to talk about jealousy as a shadow.
Can you take a step back and explain what shadow work is? Can we get a quick little definition?
Absolutely. So shadow is basically the disowned parts of ourselves, often what we are unconscious of. Sometimes aspects of the shadow will show up when you've been taught to repress something. So if your behavior, if you have a certain personality trait, like I mentioned, being silly or being lighthearted or being jovial, and you were in an environment that was really hostile, or just where everybody was really serious, and so they told you to cut that out, you repress that part of yourself because, especially as children, we want to survive. And so we might repress that part, but it's still there. We just repress it. Or say you just naturally a confident, somewhat arrogant personality, right? That has been told you, you full of yourself. How many of that girl, she's so full of herself. That guy, he's so arrogant. I can't stand somebody who's arrogant. That person then represses it because say they're surrounded in people pleasers. So instead of having that kind of arrogant, confident way of being, they become a people pleaser because that's what everybody around them is doing. They bury the arrogance. Well, then you grow up and you become an adult and you have all these repressed parts. They told you not to get angry. They told you not to be to be arrogant and be quote unquote full of yourself. They told you not to be too happy. Don't smile too much. I bring that one up a lot because that was a lot in my neighborhood. Who are you smiling for? Why are you so happy all the time? Those kinds of things get pushed down depending on what kind of environment you grow up in.
Right.
And then it becomes a part of your shadow. Now, the thing about the shadow is because it's unconscious or in the subconscious, it's active. It's doing things. It's causing triggers. Now, the other thing that comes up in the shadow is a normal, natural trauma response. So if something happened at 5, at 10, at 12, even at, early 20s, even into your 30s, if something happened, you have a natural response, but it's never addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have anxiety or things make you jump or, kind of like light PTSD in a way.
Yeah.
You have these responses, but you're told you cannot have those responses. You cannot have the sadness that you want to have. You got to be happy all the time. You got to be on, or you can't have moments of weakness because you got to be strong all the time. That gets hit on Black folk a lot. So that becomes a part of the shadow. And what that is these are the disowned parts of the self. They're not necessarily quote unquote bad. And that's a part of what makes the shadow so unfortunate is that people are defining personality traits or aspects of the self as good or bad. They're bringing that duality in opposed to just saying this experience was an experience. This personality trait is a certain personality trait. You could have a person who's aggressive, but the light of that is maybe being more assertive so that they're able to be bold enough in order to command whatever the situation is. You might have a person who's jealous. Well, what's the golden jealousy? If I notice, for instance, because usually with shadow, you deny that you even have it and you even dealing with it, right? But if I have awareness around say a jealousy trait. I see Abu Sashad and she's a priestess and she got all this stuff going on in her life and I feel a little twinge. I feel a little something in my heart Aritu, right? The Hindu call the chakras, the heart Aritu, I'm feeling something and I acknowledge I feel jealous of her. Well, wait a minute. Where can I find light in this? This is a tidbit of how to deal with these things, right? Where can I find light in this? Well, if she can do this, she's a model for me to be able to do it or something similar for myself. Well, now I'm not jealous, I'm inspired. Same energy, right? Same amount of energy. One is low vibrational, it don't feel good. And the way you know it's low vibrational is it feels heavy. You feel in your chest, you might feel something in your solar plexus. It feels heavy, it's denser. As soon as that jealousy becomes inspiration, it feels lighter. It's lifting. It elevates you. So we don't want to get rid of, this is a part of acceptance. We want to be aware of the shadow, the repressed parts of ourselves because we want to be whole, right? If a person has a bravado and an arrogance, or rather than think themselves better, they have a ton of confidence and are a wonderful glowing example of living out their truth. Often those types of people tend to ask for what they want. Well, what a wonderful demonstration. They tend to go after what they want. Well, what a great demonstration. Well, now the arrogance. And the other thing about the shadow, the way you find it a lot of the times is when you can't stand it in somebody else. You become a people pleaser. You buried your natural confidence / arrogance, right? And then you see somebody who's arrogant. You go, I can't stand the arrogant. I can't. They make me sick. I can't stand an arrogant person. And it's not that you notice it and you just think it's a personality trait that's not desirable. You can't stay like it just gets you right in your soul. You can't. Why bother you so much? Because it's a part of you, right? And the light side of that is Even if you're not a kid person, is it just a certain child that you just, whenever you're around them, you just feel a little elevated? It's something about that particular child's way of showing up in the world that may remind you of something you repressed in yourself when you were a kid. That's why I kept saying the inner child and the generational patterns and the shadow kind of work together in that way. Because often what it is that we like, I think the arrogant thing is a little kind of my thing, because I think I have a husband who's very arrogant / confident, and it always bothered me. But now that I am, I'm becoming more fortified in who I am and myself, and I've done all this healing work or whatever, I'm going, or even the idea around manipulation. This person well, we all manipulate our world. So it's kind of the point you spoke to earlier, perspective. How can I hold this in a way that serves me? How can I hold this in a way that serves my family, my community, my people? Right? How can I hold these concepts? How can I hold this activity? How can I hold this way of being in a way that actually elevates the experience, not only of myself, but everyone that's around
me? How can I hold this in a way that serves my purpose? That was, listen, I'm seeing some of the comments in here, like, so they're learning. This is great. This is really good. I do want to say this. There are two things that when you were talking, it made me think about. My neighborhood friends, we always got along, like literally never had an argument. We were just so kind to each other. We had like 2 or 3 white kids, some black kids, Puerto Rican kid. It was like, we had an Indian friend. I mean, it was like an after school special. Okay. And one of our friends moved to the neighborhood, this Puerto Rican girl, and she didn't say much. And we just thought she was shy. We found out in 2007 when we had our reunion that she didn't speak English and she had just come from Puerto Rico. But we were so cool and so dope. We didn't even care that this girl didn't speak. That's how cool we were as kids. That was my experience. Boom. Then I go to prep school. First time anybody ever called me a nigga was at prep school. I was like, okay, I see how this is. And so I got the derogatory term for his ethnic group. First, I talked to the art teacher. She didn't do anything. I talked to the headmaster. He didn't do nothing. Boom. Asked my mother, what's the derogatory term for his ethnic group? She told me. I remember sitting in art class at the bench looking right across at him, and I was 10. And I was waiting for him. I had never called anybody a derogatory term and have not since then. But I gave him what he asked for, what he needed. And I'm going to tell you like this, Queen Thandiwe, he turned something on in me. That experience turned something on in me that for a while, if you said something that I perceived was an attack, I was like Nas with the ether. Boom. And you'd be like, oh my God. And so over time, my close friends would be like, you don't have to say things quite like that. It wouldn't be to them. Sometimes I would say stuff and it would hurt their feelings and I wouldn't even know. And it's because I had that experience with him and some other racial comments that people made. I made sure to know you're going to suffer and you'll never forget me. Now, I think that's a good thing to have, and I will do it now. However, this one of my supervisors one day said to me at work, just not randomly, but I forgot the context around it. But she said, Ms. Singletary, no one is against you. This is a Black woman who told me this too. She's like, no one's against you. People like you, or something along those terms. And she said it very matter of factly, like you're good, like what's going on, type of thing. When she said that, it made me think, what are you doing, meaning me? What am I doing that this is something that she has to tell me?
Right.
And so when you said today, and I've worked on that, I'm not a sniper all the time. I got my sniper rifle, because you still need it when you're a self-respecting Black person, especially when you practice Kemetic spirituality or any other African spirituality. But I don't have to have it strapped on me all the time, right? You don't need to carry. It's just not necessary. But listening to you right now, when you said, how old were you when, I'm paraphrasing, like what was the age?
How old did that part of you think you are?
Right. And you know how old that part of me thought I was? 10 turning
Mhm.
11.
Yes.
10 turning 11. Because
Yeah.
that's when I had to, come out like Tony Montana, like, what you got? I got what you got. Whatever you want, I got. That's when I started, because I never did that before. Never,
Yeah.
ever. Never.
It
And I
became a
was always,
trigger.
yeah. And so I was always a little feisty. That's part of my nature, and that's fine. And the
Right.
other thing I wanted to mention to you, over the course of my life, the only people who've ever told me that I need to not sit in the front row, not speak out, not ask all the questions, this, that, and the third, were white women.
Mm.
And so since I had my sniper rifle, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to do it. But it made me feel some type of way that this person who was a teacher said this to me. It wasn't at school. It was in a grad program that I did.
Mhm.
And connecting what this Black woman said to me and what you just said, that is something that start. I know like almost to the day when that came about and how it makes me feel. Kind of like the part of my life, because before then I was in the after school special with my friends. We chilling, we loving each other, never
Yeah.
had an argument ever. The next year, I'm a sniper rifle. So really and truly, it is the time when you had this trauma, which kind of like broke the skin, and it
Yeah.
really,
Well, and it develops a habit. So you did
yes,
it, and then you did it again, and then you did it again. And the way the brain works is those synapses form, and they get thicker and thicker and thicker the more you
yep,
use them. And so over time, so you hear people, oh, the past, I'm just stuck in the past and the past. You're not stuck in the past. You are always in the present. But because you develop the habit over time, just like if you work the muscle over time, that synapse got thicker and thicker and thicker, which you ultimately then end up deciding to do. Well, wait, I'm going to be really intentional with how I use this particular talent I've
that's
discovered in me,
right,
right?
exactly,
How am I? I'm going to be very intentional and very specific, and opposed to letting everybody have it, right? Because some of it
right,
was a defense mechanism in
that's
order
right,
to protect yourself, which is why we develop a lot of these things, that these trigger points is a form of protecting ourselves. And you needed it when you were 10, maybe,
yep,
but oftentimes we don't need it anymore
nope,
when we've gotten older. But because we've developed, and that's why I like to call them patterns and habits, because this
yep,
is not something that's befall. When we go my trauma or it
to
becomes like this
ownership,
painful,
right.
right? And we have these associations that then lead to suffering, or this association with suffering. No, it's just a habit. It's a pattern.
Period. And you
It's
can
just
break
a
it.
pattern.
It's
It's a
just a,
pattern. You had
yep,
a thought, you had an experience. That experience led to a thought. You did something. It worked for you. It gave you a dopamine rush, probably. You probably felt powerful when you did whatever you did, and you said whatever you
I
said.
slayed
And
it
so
behind.
you got that experience over and over again. It actually sent, when you remember, in your tissues, it sent something through your system. It affected you in a certain way. You got a little high off of it. I know I didn't curse people. I've actually I cursed somebody out so bad, and not even verbally. I'm good with words, like typing. And I sent an email, no curse words, no nothing. I can turn a phrase. And after I did that, I vowed to myself, I will never use words to harm people again. I wasn't trying to harm her. I was trying to check her. She had said something to my husband I ain't like, and. And so I was like, hold on, hold up. And I remember her response was like, "You really good with words. You really did that really eloquently." And I felt like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that no more. Just because we got the talent to do it, don't mean we're supposed to use it all the
Yes,
time.
and I've had
So
that feeling
again,
too. I've
very
had,
intentional about,
yeah,
but at the same time, again, that's finding the gold in the shadow. Technically, no, I don't necessarily want to do that anymore, but it doesn't mean, hey, there's a time and a place for just about every tool we have in our
that's right.
toolbox, right?
That's
And
in my
now we're not doing it as a knee jerk, right? My eye. And you're not doing it as a knee jerk response. You're giving space. I just had this experience. This happened. And that space could be a breath, right?
yes.
That space could be, I love emotional freedom technique. Are you familiar with that? The
Oh,
tapping?
no, I don't. I'm familiar with it. We did that during yoga teacher training, but it's not something that I do.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, especially for people that have dealt with PTSD. I use it a lot with clients to just bring the intensity down, but it's a great way to create space. If you're around someone and they say something, especially people we're close to, like parents or spouses or anything like that, where they, that trigger point is just, you haven't gotten fortified around it yet, and it happens. Tapping meridian points, really helps. We could put like a chart up or something like that in the group, or on the page, in relation to it. But these are all just ways to bring intensity down. Sometimes when somebody texts me, this client, and they're like, "Oh, I'm losing it," whatever, open the window, get outside, take a walk, go eat some fruit. Like, I don't even want to talk to you till you have some water. Don't tell me you ate pizza and soda, because that's just making all of this stuff worse.
Worse.
Yes, it just intensifies. It turns the dial up on it. So one of the main things we want to do when we're feeling that out of control, to create space, is to give ourselves life.
That's
That's the
right.
best way. Give yourself life, whatever that looks like. Open the window, go around nature, drink some water, have a piece of fruit. Fruit's great because fruit is very elevating food to put into your body. But all of these ways to do that, so that when that trigger point happens, now you can be really intentional. Well, what am I, if anything, going to do in response to this? Because some things do require a response.
Yeah.
You dealing with something that's racist, that requires a response. You dealing with something that is seeking to pull energy, right? That's the best way to put. Because even disrespect has a interesting definition depending on what community that you're in. I don't really worry about how people see me or do anything. It's when
Facts.
my access or my freedom gets blocked. That's when I have a problem. I don't really worry too much about respect. I worry about you blocking movement on some level of my being,
Right. Right.
being in a position to do that. Now we dealing with liberation issues, which is really, really super important to me. So,
Right.
but to the point, I wanted to bring up some of the generational
Can,
patterns.
before we go there, I want to
Yeah.
address what Shaniqua Riley asked, because it's a
Okay.
tune to what you're saying. Um, yes, it's you have the tool when you need it, and everybody doesn't need it, and everybody doesn't deserve a response, and you can give measured responses, and I know that there have been times when I was like, or a particular time where I'm like, oh my God, goodness, I'm never gonna make somebody feel like that again. However, one of my tools is, I want you to feel like that again. I mean, I want you to feel like that so you won't bother me. That's a part of my arsenal. However, I don't I don't even remember the last time I had to do that. So to answer Shaniqua's question, yoga and meditation helps lower your resting heart rate. When you learn the physical techniques of breathing,
Breathing. Mhm.
you can breathe in anywhere. When you're in yoga class, you learn how to do it. You breathe in and out of the nose with your mouth closed, and you breathe into the belly. You're not breathing up here. You're not breathing in your chest. You're not breathing out of your mouth. When you breathe out of your mouth, that sends stress signals to your body, fight or flight. You see, like NBA players are the best ones that we could see because we see them. Football players and baseball players, but they're so far away. You can see basketball players breathing. Why? They're about to sprint. They're about to block. They're about to do this. They're using their muscles in a way that kind of simulates running from an animal or fighting or something along those lines. So in meditation or yoga, you learn to breathe through your nose. Over time, and not that long of a time, you have a resting heart rate, and you learn how a lowered resting heart rate, which means you're less reactive just generally. And also, you know how to create that space that Queen Tandide was talking about. Okay. So, for example, I remember this was a while ago. I'm driving, someone cut me off. My heart didn't even start racing. I wasn't even mad. I was like, yo, I've been doing a whole lot of yoga because I don't even care. And then that was it. I had no physiological response to someone almost crashing into me. You know why? Because he didn't. Go ahead. And it just didn't even bother me. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I was driving and this super huge white pickup truck just cut right in front of me, and I honked the horn. But what I said, I was like, dude, like, what are you doing? It just didn't even bother me. It didn't even bother me. And that's because I have learned to control my breath. And to what Queen Thandiwe was saying, I learned how to create that space. Okay. So you can hit me up afterwards. I can go more in depth with that. Anybody can hit me up afterwards if you want to learn about how to deal with trauma. Also, Thandiwe, we're going to give you specific contact information towards the end to
also join my group. I have a lot of information. It's a lot of lives and things like that talk specifically about these things also.
Yeah. Okay. That's even better. Because I just do it through yoga and meditation and practice and learning how to control the body, learning how to control the breath. Where the mind goes, the body will follow. That's another expression that they would say in Bikram Yoga. And what that means is, it means that physically. So when you're holding a posture, if you look, you're going to fall out and hurt yourself just by moving your eyeballs, y'all. Okay. That's what it means physically. But spiritually, intellectually, academically, socially, everything, what you think eventually becomes what you do. Okay. So I hope that helped. Queen Thandiwe is going to give us information in the end on how you can go more into depth with that.
But I wanted to add, what you're talking about is being in practice. What happens is, again, we're reactive. So it happened. I'm in the moment. I'm not sure what to do. What you're talking about is being in practice. And so the breath is normalized, creating space around all situations gets normalized. Even if you do something as simple, like maybe you're not necessarily ready to jump fully into a yoga practice, but you do a 4-count breath before you get in your car. You do a 4-count breath before you get out of your car, before you know you're about to go into, say, a work environment. You do a breath before you leave your house. Something really simple that you make a part of your life. As soon as you get up, when you sit up in the morning, before you put your feet on the floor, you take several breaths. I like to do about I like fire breaths and things like that. But when you make it a part of your life and it's normalized, then when you find yourself in a situation, then, like you said, someone cutting you off in traffic doesn't affect you because you've already normalized the space.
That's right.
So if you normalize the space, then those surprise moments, someone catching you off guard or whatever, doesn't necessarily have the opportunity to knock you out of your elevated state. Hello.
Right.
Like, I don't tolerate people messing with my vibration.
Say it again, girl.
Well, if you finna come, no. I was up here and you trying to, we're not doing that.
We ain't doing that.
I have a conviction about that. Like, that's not a small thing. Like, you trying to, you see, you trying it. And then I also look at myself. Okay, I'm not fitting to magnetize anything into my field that looks anything that's lowering my vibration. So I'm not going to do that. So all of those different things are really important. But the getting in practice, for you, that might be meditation. For you, that might be yoga. For you, it might just be breath work. Breath work in and of itself, even without the asanas, it could be an excellent starting point for you. I love visualization. That's been kind of my mode of meditation lately. Visualizing your day before it starts, especially if this is like perhaps an ongoing thing, or there's a certain person that has a tendency to get at the job or in the family or whatever, you fit to be around them anyway. Let me set an intention around this. Let me decide. And however you understand your spiritual understanding, use that and let that step forward. We don't want to step forward with our triggers. We don't want to step forward with our minds only know what we've always done. You have to instruct the mind to do things different. If you had old habits of the mind, for instance, that used to pop off, because I definitely had that one, you have to tell the mind, oh yeah, no, we don't do that no more. We do something else.
And you can do that, and you're allowed to grow. And don't let anybody tell you that you have to always be the person who used to pop off. You don't have to do that. And if they see you that way forever, that's the box that they're in. That's their work that they need to do, because they have on old, outdated goggles.
Well, you got to let everybody take their journey. Like, it's really important for us to understand I'm on a journey, you're on a journey, and everybody around us is on a journey, and that they're where they are. And they are under no obligation to be where you need them to be.
That's
I
right.
don't level expectations onto other people. I say, this is my boundary. If you cross it, I'm out. And when
Oh,
you
you
chilling again, I'm back. Like it's for me,
out.
it's that simple. I'm not crushed, like I have, I adore my father. My father, on and off alcoholic my whole life. If you drink, I'm out. When you stop, what's up? Not, oh, and he chose, because I used to do that. He chose alcohol over me, and why is he? And it's a whole process, and I'm not trivializing, because it's a whole process to be the child of an alcoholic. But at some point, I had to decide, well, what experience of him do I want to be having? Same thing. This
That's
is still
right.
exercising dominion. What experience of this relationship do I want to be having? Well, I have dominion over myself. I decide what it is that I engage with and what I don't. And when he drank, I don't like that. So I'm out. And when he stopped, but not, you need to stop drinking for me, or you need to do this, because no, you do not.
No,
You
he
need to live
doesn't.
your life, live your journey, and whatever that looks like, it looks like. And I'll come in and out as it makes sense for me. It can be that simple. But that's also how you know you're on the healing journey.
Right. Right.
Similar to what you talked about, that I didn't get upset when I got cut off. It's like, and that's the thing, when we talk about pain being loud, peace is so quiet. It's like one day you go,
Quiet.
oh, I don't do that no more.
Right. You'd be like, I was like, I don't even care. It didn't even
I don't
bother
do
me.
this no more.
I had no physiological response. I was like, your girl done done a lot of yoga. I don't even care. And I don't
No,
even
nervous
where.
system was like, what? Chilling.
Right. Nervous system was in the cuts, in the cut. Now, before we do one of the last things, I want to mention something else that you said.
Yes.
In part of creating this space for peace is connecting with the elements. I've always liked walking barefoot, and I used to climb the tree in my backyard, and I used to pick up rocks and just have rocks. And this was when I was a kid, and this was before I became, aware of African spiritual practices. And the other day, I picked up a rock, and it was in the mud. And so I'm like, I got it out the mud. Now, mud is relative, and I definitely didn't have a hard upbringing, but I felt like this was something for 2022. So I cleaned it, of course, and put the rock on my altar. I like earth elements. On my altar, I part of what changes on my altar is whatever is in the season. So when it's the fall, I'll have different color leaves on my altar. When it's the winter, I'll have the pine cones. When it's the summer or the spring, I might have, like, I don't know, basically whatever's outside. I've had dandelions on my altar. And so when we have our solstices and our equinoxes, I know that it's kind of like a reminder, hey, check your altar. What element have you changed out? The earth, Geb, has always been something that I've just loved to put my hands on and touch on and put my feet on and stuff like that. I brought shells from Norfolk, Virginia, because my mom grew up in Norfolk. I have those shells. I have sand from Kemet. I have water from Kemet, and I have rocks. And it's because I like to. When I garden, I don't use gloves. I be all up in the dirt, and then you bathe, and sometimes it's hard to get the dirt out, and I feel some kind of way as a grown woman with dirty nails, and I go get my nails done, and Kendra be looking at me like, and I'm like, listen, I was in my garden. So find what you like, or recognize what you are. Yeah, Shirley said grounding, walking around barefoot. Find which element already means something to you. It doesn't, and you could like them all. Like, I like the sound of rain, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is, in creating a space for you that you like, that gives you a centered focus to work on your inner peace, natural elements from outside, bringing them inside is really a way to bring in a type of peace that you cannot experience unless you have that natural nature earth element in your space.
Also, open the windows.
Mm-hmm.
Even in your space, make sure you open the windows, you open the blinds. You'd be surprised how long people, especially when you live in the city, how long people go without actually, or if it's the winter time, even when it's cold, just let a little fresh air into your space. Let your space be cleansed by that air. It
Mm-hmm.
really, really does. It makes a really powerful difference. Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. So, did you want to go a little bit deeper into shadow work, or do you want to talk about your? I want to hear about your rites of passage, but I don't want to rush. If there's anything else that you wanted to say.
No, it's whatever it is that you want to talk about. The rites of passage, talking about that won't take a super long time.
Okay.
But yes, we are going. The second new moon of the calendar year in February. On February 1st, we do our orientation. And basically, what it is, it's an 11-week rites of passage program called Sistars Rising, because I acknowledge all of my sisters as the light. And basically, what we're doing is a healing through the Arit system, again, what is also known as the chakra system. And we are taking a process through the Africana. This is for Black women, what we call the affinity space for Black, spiritual Black women. And we are going through the process of the Africana divine feminine healing and elevation process. So every week we go to each Aritu. So starting at the root, going all the way up to the crown. There you go. Going all the way up to the crown. And of course, each of these Aritu governs certain areas of life, certain energies. So we're cleansing these parts of our lives. We're cleansing these parts of our bodies. We're cleansing this part of our energy field. We're looking at everything about the Aritu system from the Afrocentric perspective. But the Africana divine feminine healing and elevation process, we look at the first day, we look at the, what I like to call the underwater iceberg dive. So that's where we're looking at the shadow. That's where we're looking at the inner child. That's where we're looking at beliefs that you weren't necessarily aware that you had. We're looking at identity. We're looking at understanding of ourselves so that we can pull it up, shine strobe light on what's actually there in the subconscious, and making a conscious decision about what we want to believe and what we want to live into. The next 2 days, we do the four-facet Aritu healing, mind, body, heart, and spirit. In each Aritu, we focus on this area. It's very experiential. It's a short lesson each and every day. And then on the fourth day, we do Awakening the Goddess activation day, which is where we are pulling on our own divinity, pulling in. And the reason why it's Africana divine feminine is, of course, because the masculine is often celebrated, and a lot of people are in connection with that. A lot of the sisters that I meet are in connection with kind of the analytical, systematic aspects of the self, but not so much the ethereal, the intuitive, and the connected, creative part of the self. And so we look at that for the Africana divine feminine. And so we use this aspect of our divinity to further heal from the work that we had done throughout the week, and then to activate this part of ourselves so that we really live into our divinity with power. And then the last day, the fifth day of the week, well, actually it's the sixth day because we start with our sister circle, which is on Sundays. But the sixth day of that week, we do the manifestation day. Because most people think of healing up the Aritu system as we go all the way up to the crown and we live and everything is very light and airy and fairy. But no, we have to start with that divine idea. So say in the root Aritu, you have something that you want to do, manifest or create in the world. That idea starts in that divine mind. It comes down to the first eye, what we call the first eye. And you have your ideas and your visualization around it. It comes down to the throat where we give it voice, we give it words, we give it life, we bring it down into the heart space, we create those relationships and all of that energy and motion around that. And then we drop down into the solar plexus where it actually gets that will and that power. And we drop down into the sacral, which actually has movement in the world. And then it gets into the root. So we take this healing that we've been doing all week, and then we actually devise a strategy. Remember, we are designing and demonstrating within the area of our sacred calling. And we're understanding the sacred calling not as a job necessarily or a career only, but is a part of our nia, our purpose throughout every aspect of our lives. So we're going to be living this out in every Aritu, going through this process every week where you get really, really good at the manifestation process. We actually just did a visioning and manifestation challenge, and the group was really powerful. It was really great. It'll be up too, by the way. Melanated Divinity is the name of the Facebook group. It'll be up for free until the 7th. And then we'll be taking it down. But but the totality.
Before you continue, I want people to see how they can contact you. What is the name? So you said Melanated Divinity?
Yes, that's the Facebook group name.
And Facebook. So this group is the group that gives them the information for the rites of passage?
It'll give them the information, but I also gave you the link. I can send it to you again if you want to type it in.
Can you DM it to me on Facebook so I can just put it right into the chat?
I can do that.
You can text it to me and I can make that work too.
Wait. I have it right here. 1 second. Oh, but the other aspect that we also do is every Thursday we do a Black Queen Magic Masterclass where we focus on topics that are really important to us specifically as Black women. Things in relation to internalized oppression, things in relation to womb healing, things in relation to sisterhood and how to actually build a circle of support around you where you're not going through this life and this healing journey alone, and where we actually know how to be there for people and actually how to receive from one another, things around self-confidence, self-love, mastery, all the topics that have come up, how to keep your energies elevated, how to heal relationships in your family, how to heal around generational trauma and the inner child work. All of that stuff comes up throughout the master classes. There's inner child work throughout the week as well. And you're guided through the process. So it's not like a whole lot of figuring things out. I am facilitating the entire process and we're doing it in sisterhood together.
I found it. Queen Thandiwe gave it to me, but I overlooked it, y'all. That was my bad. That wasn't her fault.
Did you see it?
That's the link right here, right?
That's the link to the group. And then I'm going to send you in Messenger the link to the because you have to apply. I'm very protective of this, so I got to make sure people are oh, that's right, you're Sai, right?
Yoga Girl Sai.
Yoga Girl Sai. It's really, really important that the right people get into the group. We're only bringing in 22 people so that everybody can get direct focus and attention. And I want to vibe. I want to connect with everyone. It's actually a very valuable and free. When you apply, we get on the phone, we chat with each other for a little while. I find out what it is that you need, and the path to take to help you to get there. The sisters that have already signed up are amazing. And I'm just really, really excited. So we are jumping off on February 1st. And there's the link. I don't know if you got it in your in the chat, in the DM, in Facebook. I sent you the link to the actual program. You'll see all the detailed information there. And of course, when we get on and we chat, you can ask me any questions that you have about it there as well. It's going to be awesome. And this is also the beta round. So it's the lowest price it will ever be. The lowest investment it'll ever be, because I want to make sure that people are able to get in and connect with this work. This directly connects to that mission of helping Black women to heal any internalization of things that they're not even necessarily aware of. Is that clickable?
Girl.
Because really the link actually stops before that question mark. Like they could type in queenthandiwe.com/sisters-rising and find it.
All right, my bad, y'all. Ignore that. Hold on, I'm gonna do this again.
No, it might do that on its own. I don't know why, but
starts rising and then stop at the question mark.
Yep, right before the question mark.
Boom. All right, I'm gonna click on it and see what happens. Oh no, I'm gonna just show it. Okay, boom.
There you go. That's perfect. Yep, that's perfect.
I mean, listen, y'all know how to get in touch with her. Do you have a general email that people can have?
Queen@queenthandiwe.com.
Grab that.
All right, the Facebook group, Melanated Divinity, high vibe, all love, all celebrating Black women. We look at healing, we look at raising the vibration, we look at healing from a holistic perspective. Like I said, we just did visioning and manifestation because that's what the ladies said that they wanted. Queen said that they wanted, but we're also going to be doing more around shadow work and all of those different things. But this rites of passage program is everything. It's everything.
All right, okay, there we go. That's the email that you can use to contact her. Yep. This is also good for her PayPal. We can hit up her PayPal. she doesn't do this for money, but we need money to do this. So
That's the
if
truth. Hallelujah.
whatever, you know what I'm saying, whatever
Mhm.
you can give is something that would be definitely appreciated. Maybe I can get some typing lessons, y'all. That's actually something I'm working on. Okay, boom. That's PayPal, and Zelle is Queen at Queen Thandiwe, and for Cash App
It's
and
it's Queen
Venmo.
Thandiwe there too. The $ Queen Thandiwe.
Queen. Now there's some questions that I want to answer. Queen Thandiwe. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay on to answer questions.
Yeah, definitely. I love gadgets. Gadget. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. What if the people around you don't believe in perfection? What do you do when nothing seems to work, no matter how hard you try? Can we address those really quickly, or not really quickly, but can we give that a little light? I'm gonna put you on solo, but I'm still here. Okay.
So wait, no, I'm not sure which. I feel like you said a few questions.
Yeah. Two. It was. Oh goodness, where did it go? Oh. I'll give you this question because I have to go back and look at those other ones. I don't even know where they are now. It's the same person. How can we heal from the ongoing trauma of miseducation?
We as a collective, I'm assuming.
That's what I'm thinking too.
The ongoing trauma of miseducation. Well, I mean, the fast answer to that is to start to educate yourself and define your sources and where you get your information from. It's kind of like what we were talking about in the beginning. The origin. What is the origin of the information? You are now aware that you've been miseducated. A lot of people aren't necessarily aware that they've been miseducated. And the word I use, demonstration, how to become a demonstration. The more you learn, the more you are in the space of educating yourself. And of course, I lead with divinity. So I let my spirituality also lead me to the information that I need to be in the process of decolonizing the mind. When we talk about what we've internalized, it's being 100% real and aware with yourself first, right? A lot of times we want to kind of point the finger out, but the thing that's really necessary is for us to look at all the ways, even with all this education and being an initiate of the shrine and doing the work that I'm doing on internalized oppression in my program and all of that, I still catch myself. Like, oh snap, what did I just say? Or what just slipped out of my mouth? Or what did I think? It is really, really important to be detailed in the level that we are able to check and become aware of what we are doing. And then the more we're able to do that, it's so interesting. When I used to try to tell people about things in my circle, they didn't want to hear it. When they see me live it out, when I show up to Thanksgiving and I don't eat and I'm fasting, people are so curious. Or when I show up with a certain head wrap, or I show up with an ankh on my hand, or when I show up as me living out authentically as a demonstration of the decolonizing process of my mind, of the healing process of my life. When people see things manifesting in my life, when they see things going a certain way in my life, when they see me in different places speaking and living out my truth, they get curious about what's going on with you, and they start to ask questions. They start to open the way. But I also deeply honor people's journey. I have a very high level of regard for everyone that I work with and that I interact with. And that's a discipline and a practice too, because it can get really frustrating when we dealing with people in our community that are like refusing the information that's right in front of their faces. So I do get that piece of wanting to heal from miseducation, wanting to heal everybody from miseducation. But we also must understand that we are always on an ongoing healing, decolonizing, and healing our own miseducation.
That's right.
We're not done. And once we think we done and then we gonna teach and have everybody else come, no, I meet you where you are. And wherever that, when you're ready to open that community, when someone sat down to me and said, why are you not eating Thanksgiving dinner again? And it's like, do you really want to know?
Right.
Because I'm about to mess Thanksgiving up for you. But
right.
But the way becomes open. And this is also where my belief, and this is how I work, divinity also comes into play, right? So if you have people around you that are quote unquote miseducated, and it maybe gets frustrating and they don't want to hear what you have to say, I wrap them in so much love and light And I pray, I speak hekau, I speak sacred words over people. I don't just affirm or say affirmations for myself. I say affirmations for other people. Before I even see them, I wrap them in so much love and light, and you see things crack open. I set intentions for my interaction with them while also honoring they have free will to decide to take the journey that's meant for them. And that's when you start to see the layers peel back. You start to see people, you plant a seed, you just say something, just because you living out authentically, that plants a seed in somebody, and then they go, and that's where the trust has to come in, that they'll go and they'll do when it's right for them along their journey. That unconditional high regard for everyone's divinity and ability to heal self, to decolonize their mind, but it has to be their choice.
Yes.
And you living as this shining beacon and demonstration. Again, that's why I use the word demonstration. Design and demonstrate. Design and demonstrate. You exercise dominion over your own life. And then you live that out authentically. Every new piece of knowledge and everything, you're not necessarily preaching and teaching it to everybody. You're living it. If I get frustrated and people go, where'd she go? Oh, she went to the park. Why? Why she got? She got frustrated or something happened or she didn't feel. Why do you go to the park every single time you get frustrated? Well, I'll tell you. Because I'm a living demonstration of that process, right? I wear my symbols everywhere that I go so that you know when I represent life. When I have the Ankh with me, I represent healing. When I have some image of Sekhmet with me, you know, you get to see those things as a demonstration, and then I have this high level of faith and trust that people will come along, and they really do. So I wanted to address that kind of from the perspective of, are you healing your own miseducation? But also, are we if we're talking kind of in a broader macrocosm sense of the community, how do we heal that miseducation as well? And it's really about meeting people where they are. You know, so I'll use the language that people use. I use generational curses when I talked about generational patterns, because people know the word generational curses. It's a button. Now, when I get your attention and you listening and you're ready to hear me, now we're going to adjust the word curse, and we're going to look at it from different angles, and we're going to understand things. But first, I got to get your attention. And the way to do that is to climb into your world where you are, not expect you to climb in where I am.
Right. Great. That was awesome. That was a good explanation. Just and ultimately, in setting intentions to see the person's divinity and wrap light around them when you meet them, that is what we do in terms of being responsible for ourselves. There was something else you said, taking it upon yourself to educate yourself. As Kemites and people who practice Kemetic spirituality, and also people who just practice African spirituality in general, you are in control of you. You are in control of you. You are in control of what you do. You are in control of the space around you. That is very African in nature. Okay. Mm-hmm. So just in general, pre-colonial, when I say African in nature, that's what I mean. So I still have Queen Thandiwe's information up. There's her website. Do you have an Instagram account that I can put up?
I am Queen Thandiwe. I'm not quite as active on there, but I am on there.
Is it so? What's the best? This is the best place to reach you, right?
Facebook group.
Facebook is the best place to reach
her, you guys. Get me.
Facebook and you'll get her. That's what she said. We've got her email, Queen Thandiwe. We have her Facebook group. So those are the best two ways to reach her. And yes, M. Jewel, you become the example. Yes, absolutely. And and just keep at it. And your transformation happens while you're living your life. Yep. And it's sometimes it's difficult to have a perspective because it's you. It's hard to have perspective on you, unless you do it deliberately and with intention and with ritual and with practice.
Well, but to also find support. Mm-hmm. Like, I love is a saying I heard a long time ago. It's hard to see the picture when you live in the frame. That's what I thought of when you said what you said. because it's you. I'm living in the frame. But if you have someone, whether you find a spiritual Jegna like myself or a community like the Shrine of Ma'at, which has been, an excellent mirror for me, I'm like, wow, I'm really elevating because I got this whole elevated community around me that I just, brought myself into. But yeah, to seek out community like mine, even if it's just one other person, it's a friend, it's a community, a book group, whatever it is, wherever you started. I started alone on my knees trying to figure it out, Googling near-death experiences, like whatever. Start where you are. I'm very big on stay on the path, even if the path feels wrong, because that momentum will put you where it is you need to be. But when we wait and we're trying to figure it out and we're trying to make the right moves and the right steps, it's hard to build up the momentum that starts to magnetize to you the things, the people, the opportunities, and whatever it is to do to address the miseducation, to address the decolonization. It's when you put yourself. I have been knocked around in all kinds of environments before I found where it is that I needed to be, that was primarily Pan-African. And I'm still somewhat connected to those communities, but within those communities, I found amazing comedic elders, that I wouldn't have found in any other pathway. So I trust the path, I trust the journey. And it's really important to trust in your own evolution and becoming. It's exciting.
It's exciting.
Healing doesn't have to be suffering, because it can be fun. The rites of passage, fun. It's going to have a fun, yes, it's important things that we're addressing, but we love life. That's what we are. That's what we emanate. That's where we come from.
That's right.
We approach these heavier topics from this space. It makes it way more approachable than to come from it from a fear-based space.
When you come from it from an African paradigm with an African perspective, then you are you're in control of yourself. You're in control of your own dominion. So because of that, you can have as much fun as you want to have. And I think that's right. You decide and design your own experience. And one thing that we have to really kind of let go of is that when we heal, it's a process. Just like everything else, eventually you are healed. You are healed, and it's okay to be happy. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to enjoy your life. Let me say that again. You should be happy. You should laugh. You should enjoy your life. And you are always a work in process, and absolutely trust the process. And we deserve this. Yes. We deserve this. And this level of happiness and peace is 100% attainable. It's attainable. It absolutely is.
Want liberation for Black people, get happy.
That's right.
Get happy. When we're talking about Black liberation and getting to that place, yes, what we're talking about doing is serious work. And I totally feel you with some of the elements that we're talking about, especially when we're pushing back against resistance to our joy, which is just, but it's because understanding that joy, that light, that love, that gratitude, that elevated feeling, that living in peace, that understanding that we are good regardless of external circumstances is the most powerful, the most liberated, the most authentic that we possibly can be. And doing it in the space where we're also honoring our culture, honoring our lineage, honoring our legacy, honoring our Afrocentricity, pushing back against narratives that have been put on us about that want to negate African spirituality and African perspectives, and taking a stand. But we can take a stand in joy. We can take a stand in love. We can take a stand in feeling peace. I can get pissed at you and know that I'm still good. But also know you just crossed a boundary.
Right.
And you coming in trying to mess with the liberation of my people. That is something, again, when we talk about the gold shadow, now I can be very intentional about my festivity in relation to that and address it with that energy and that power. But you ain't messing with my joy, because that's my beingness. That's my state of being, which is different than the energy that I need to direct in a certain place because, some situation requires it. I get lit about this kind of stuff. So
I'm just reading some of the comments. Shaniqua said she's been subscribed for a while now, but never watched. I even get alerts. I guess it wasn't time. No, no, it is. Yeah. Oh, now it is. It is. Right. It is. I also want to let you guys know in terms of community, the Shrine of Ma'at is we have applications are now open for initiation. So if initiation is something that you are interested in, a community, please go to the shrineofmaat.org. I put it in the chat. I was about to say chat. Shrineofmaat.org. Boom. You go to that website that I just put up, and the application information is there. We are currently interviewing. This is a great community. I love the Shrine of Ma'at. It's the community that all Black people need to be your true, authentic self of who you are, your natural self. You can peel away all these layers of all of the things we've discussed tonight. It's a place of happiness and joy and transformation and the Kepara process. So that information is there. And you
also concur. The word that I use whenever I talk about the Shrine of Ma'at is consistency. It does not waver. The love and the joy that she's talking about, the connection with sins and sinettes and all of that, and people being genuinely concerned and being there when I need that connection and that support, or if someone needs that connection and support from me, it's very consistent. And that's really powerful to have a community that is genuine and consistent.
Yeah. And that comes from our leadership in Anika and Jabari, our high priestess and high priest, who've recently been installed in the Asebo region of Ghana, in Kori, Asebo. And Jabari is a chief and Anika is a queen mother. So the bringing back the Kemetic spirituality back to Ghana and the west coast of Africa is something that they've requested and something that they want. The shrine is growing. So just want to let you know, M. Jules said this was a grand interview. Dua to you both. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I enjoy doing what I do. I want to thank Queen Thandiwe for joining us tonight and imparting all of this fun and information and steps and instructions. And I don't catch all the comments in the chat, but from the ones that I did see, people were like, "Oh, I didn't know this. Oh, this is great. Oh, speak truth to power." And this this queen is grand. So I just want to just thank Queen Thandiwe for being here. I'm so glad that she was able to impart this wisdom on the people who joined us this evening. And I also want to thank you myself, Abu Sashat, for coming to Tuesday Talk consistently and being a part of what makes the Shrine of Ma'at a great institution. I've learned so much. I've grown so much from being in Tuesday Talk. And you guys are the reason that I've been able to make this kind of growth. It's transferred into my own spiritual life. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you guys for that. So we're going to bring this session of Tuesday Talk to a close. And if you want to reach out to Queen Thandiwe and you miss anything, you can always hit me up. I can get information to her, but she's on Facebook at online at queenthandiwe.com/sistars with an A -rising. So Dua for being here, and you guys are all welcome. I see all the Duas. You guys are welcome, and I will see you next week. Shema Matep, go forth, and much more to the family. Much more to the family.